I was dealing on the Delta with a bottle and a grin, blackjack on a riverboat, losing saints and sin. A one-eyed man in a funeral hat slid a paper across the green, said, I lost this town to high water, now it belongs to what you've seen. It was inked with iron crossings, a church, a well, a square, and a date, 1912, like a grave cut in the air. Down where the cold mud keeps her secrets, down where the catfish knows old bones, that drowned town still lights some windows, like the Lord forgot to leave it alone. I heard them bells through the black water, felt my revolver turn to stone. Ain't no card sharp outrun judgment when the lanterns burn below. I rode them railroad edges where the cane fields choked the moon, with whiskey in my saddlebag and midnight coming soon. The locals crossed themselves and said, boy, don't chase that glow. When the church lights up beneath the flood, somebody's called below. I found the bank at deadfall, where cypress shadows kneel, and there under glass at devil black, them steeple lights were real. I saw pale faces in the windows, Sunday best and water skin, and the dealer with the funeral hat was smiling back again. Down where the cold mud keeps her secrets, down where the catfish knows old bones, the drowned town still lights some windows, like the Lord forgot to leave it alone. I heard them bells through the black water, felt my revolver turn to stone. I won a map and lost my shadow, the lanterns burn below. I parked my rusty Chevy by the courthouse steps at dusk, boot heels in the sawdust, badge buried under rust. Them windows wore black cobwebs, moon hung like a noose, and every boy complained my name like he knew the truth. I lit a cheap cigarette, took one swallow of rye, heard a tinny little hymn drift where the records used to lie. Not the wind through broken shutters, not a train down by the pine, but the rounds I sent through flesh and law come back to harmonize. The walls full of lead started singing low, every bullet had a voice from a life I let go. One cry for a gambler, one moan for a boy, one laugh like the devil at the badge I destroyed. In that abandoned judgment hall, with the shadows dressed in black, every shot I ever fired came right in with me back. door, hand twitching for his gun. There was Sarah's drunken husband in the fever of a run. There was one I swore was righteous, one I never should have drew, and the plaster kept on ringing with the lies I call the truth. I dropped down to the pew where the jury used to pray, set my revolver on the pile like I could give the dead their say. But the choir only rose higher through the mildew and the gloom, till dawn found me gray and shaking in that cold and haunted room. Ain't no preacher in the county gonna wash this iron clean when the courthouse keeps confession in the cracks and in the beams. The walls full of lead started singing low. Every bullet had a voice from a life I let go. One cried for a gambler, one moaned for a boy, one laughed like the devil at the badge I destroyed. In that abandoned judgment hall with the shadows dressed in black, every shot I ever fired came right in with me back. Down in the stockyard by the railroad ties, that auction man sang with a fire in his eye. Hammer like thunder, dust in his throat, black bull snorting like brimstone smoke. Old men sip whiskey, young hands made bids, storm in the pen where the daylight hid. I heard him grin, boys, he don't spook, don't tire. But the ravens rose when he hollered so for hire. That black bull walks where the sun won't stay, brings a man back empty by the break of day. No shadow dragging, no voice to raise, just cold dead eyes in a dust-blown haze. One by one, them buys paid in soul for a set of homes and a brand black hole. When the gavel fell, hell took its toll on the shadowless bull from the auction pole. First was a drifter with a silver revolver, found at dawn, looking 10 years older, mouth moving wide, but no sound came through, and his boots cast nothing in the morning blue. Then a preacher bought him, said I fear no sin. By sundown he was shaking with the devil grinning, Bible in the mud, hat brim torn, and not one scrap of shade come dawn. So I I laid my bed with a bottle in hand. Figured I'd rope what no other man can. But when it turned, I saw my grave in two red coals and the dust they gave. That black bull walks where the sun won't stay, brings a man back empty by the break of day. No shadow dragging, no voice to raise, just cold dead eyes in a dust-blown haze. I left my money and I left that town, heard the gavel ring like a chain gang sound. And every night when the moon rolls full, I lock my door from the shadowless blood. Down by Black Creek at the break of day, them timber boys rolled in with the blades all gray. Whiskey on breath, red dust on their jeans, cutting to an oak where the lightning had been. The first bright scream like a widow in church, then gold came spilling from the splintered dirt. Wedding bands by the dozens, cold as the rain, buried in the heartwood like a preacher's shame. Rings in the heartwood, names in the bar, every lost husband come walking from the dark. Boot heels on the gravel, eyes black as coal, called back from the river and the mine shaft told. Lord, when that old saw sang, every vow uncurled, and the dead came home to a half-buried world. Miss Ada dropped her wash line, fell to her knees, saw Earl by the railroad through the sycamore trees. Still wore the same tie from their wedding night, but his smile was thin as a razor in moonlight. Sheriff spun his revolver, preacher held his breath, whole county froze in the tobacco dusk of death. Each man took his ring from the blood-red grain, and every porch lamp flickered like it knew their name. Some wives cried mercy, some bolted the door, some found old sin standing on the floor. The tree kept secrets the devil couldn't keep. Now the roots are empty and nobody sleeps. Rings in the hardwood, names in the barn, every lost husband come walking from the dark. Boots heels on the gravel, eyes black as coal, called back from the river and the mine shaft told. Lord, when that old saw sang, every vow uncurled, and the dead came home to a half-buried world. down past the rail yard, where the kudzu swallows steel. A preacher with no church spun the midnight dial like a wheel. Bootleg tower in the pines, humming through the heat, reading funeral dedications over a Delta shuffle beat. He called out Earl from Mason Creek, black suit, silver tie. Said your mama's gonna wail next Tuesday when the red clay dries. Earl laughed into his whiskey, slapped the bar and tipped his hat, till the station named the bullet hole in his old felt Stetson black. Last rites on AM, drifting through the dark, calling names of the breathing, hitting every mark. Dust on the dashboard, shadows at the door. When the ghost voice says your story, you ain't laughing anymore. Last rites on AM, low and thin ascent, and knows the grave you're walking to and the shape your box is in. By Friday all the county kept one hand near a gun, hearing hymns for living souls before their dying done. And then I heard my own name crackle through the cigarette glow. Blue shirt, borrowed Chevy, River Bridge by Kokomo. They said no mourner but a stray dog, no flowers but the weeds, and a woman with a wedding band will never know you bleed. I drove toward dawn to outrun it, but that station followed near, like the devil riding shotgun and the reaper at the steer. At mile marker 13 I found the tower bent and burned. No wires in the wind at all, but the on-air sign still turned. From the ashes came the last song in a voice that sounded mine. A man can't dodge his eulogy when the truth keeps perfect time. Last rites on AM, drifting through the dark, calling names of the breathing, hitting every mark. Dust on the dashboard, shadows at the door. When that ghost voice says your story, you ain't laughing anymore. Last rites on AM, low and thin ascent, it knows the grave you're walking to and the shape your box is in. Hung low on a broken track, silver on the shell and the cinders black. I had a flask of rye and a pawn shop gun, running from a dead I could never outrun. Old folks said that tunnel keeps the final breath of the fools it keeps, but a drifter learns when the night's that cold. Ghost stories ain't worth more than gold. That tunnel moon echo, cold as a judge, throws your last words back through the soot and the sludge, calls your sins by name in a dead man's draw. And the dark keeps count of us, one and all. Lord, I heard mine coming, slow and low. Don't let us see what I came to hold in that tunnel moon echo. Halfway through where the lantern died, I heard scrape at my left-hand side. Then a woman's voice from the smokestack stone, the very last last prayer of the ones gone lone. A brakeman coughed, a preacher wept, a killer laughed where the water slept. Then clear as thunder in a graveyard scene, my own voice rose like a fever dream. At the far end, dawn was a rust-red scar, but I turned back meaner than I was before. 'Cause some debts chase harder when the dead men know the one truth you bury down below. That tunnel moon echoed, cold as a judge, throws your last words back through the soot and the sludge, calls your sins by name in a dead man's draw, and the dark keeps count of us, one and all. Lord, I heard mine coming, slow and low. Don't let her see what I came to owe in that tunnel moon echo. Down by the river where the red clay sweats, old Ezekiel hammered out the town's regrets. From a cigar box full of coffin nails and pine box rust from the pauper's rails, the forge glowed hot like a judgment sun, while whiskey shook in his blackened lungs. He said that bell went mute when the preacher lied. Tonight I'm gonna make the graveyards rise. Ring that bell of coffin iron, shake the dust from the devil's choir. Hear them boots through the cedar ground, saints and sinners coming round. When the steeple groans and the night wind snaps, no soul stays buried after that. Ring that bell till the moon turns pale and the dead folk answer every name. He forged the clapper long and lean, with a railroad spiked for a wicked scene, his apron stained with ash and sin, a revolver rolled on his bony hip. At midnight's throat he climbed the stairs, past spider hymns and splintered prayers, then struck that bronze with a one-note doom, and the graveyard opened like a saloon. Out came widows, drunks and deacons, chain gang ghosts and the fever beating. The preacher too, with his collar charred, still clutching keys to the poorhouse yard. They filled the pews with their hollow grace, dirt on their hands and moonlight faces. Ezekiel bowed, but he did not pray, 'cause redemption ain't what came that day. Ring that bell of coffin iron, shake the dust from the devil's choir. Hear them boots through the cedar ground, saints and sinners coming round. When the steeple groans and the night wind snaps, no soul stays buried after that. Ring that bell till the moon turns pale and the dead folk answer every name. Ring that bell of coffin iron, shake the dust from the devil's choir. Hear them boots through the cedar ground, saints and sinners coming round. past mile marker 13 where the blacktop bend sits a diner by the graves where the county road ends. Neon buzzing like a haunted cross flickers red, and the waitress pours a midnight roast for the long gone dead. I rolled in the days of cough, dust on my tongue, saw rigs with rusty mirrors like they never stay young. Every hat brim low, every shadow lean, like they hauled sand through Arkansas sometime in '63. Graveyard coffin, black as a widow's dress, steam rising slow off a highway's old distress. They clink them ghost white cups when the moon hangs low. Those truckers still come drinking where the cold winds blow. On Cemetery Road where the lost don't leave, they chase one more mile that they never could achieve. Old man at the counter said, son, don't ask names. That road took a dozen souls in the rain and flame. Jackknifed by the railroad crossing, trailer full of pine. Now they're rolling every night just to buy ball time. One turned and grinned at me with a bullet hole stare. Smelled like wet tobacco, whiskey, and funeral air. He said, keep your hands on the wheel, and the south wind moans, or you'll be back here parked beside a polished bones. At dawn, the cups were empty and the boots were bare, just revolver, gray light, and smoke in the air. I left $1 and a prayer by the crack pie case and drove like hell with the dead on my trace. Graveyard coffee, black as a widow's dress, steam rising slow off a highway's old distress. They clink them ghost white cups when the moon hangs low. Those truckers still come drinking where the cold winds blow. On Cemetery Road where the lost don't leave, they chase one more mile that they never could achieve. When Amos died, they brought his things in rain. A widow in black with a Bible full of pain. One old brass clock from his daddy's shotgun wall. Hands froze at midnight, but it still heard the call. It never made a sound through the thunder or the wake, till boots hit the clay by the sycamore break. Then tick, tick, tick through the whiskey and the smoke, like a rattler in the dark where the red earth broke. The clock only ticks when the wrong gray's drawn, when a shovel bites a secret best left gone. In this town of dust and railroads and crows, the dead don't sleep where the Black River flows. She held that clock like a cold 6 gun and prayed for mercy that never come. Tick, 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 like judgment's tongue for the wrong grave dug and the bell not rung. By the church where the lanterns swayed, the preacher and the sheriff had a midnight trade. They weren't planning mercy, they were moving blame, trying to hide a boy and erase a name. She followed that ticking through the pines and shale, past a rusted railroad and a blood-red trail. When the moon caught steel in the sheriff's hand, she knew her Amos was buried on stolen land. She raised his revolver, let the night stand still, said you can fool the town, but you can't fool the hill. The clock quit ticking when the truth hit mud, and dawn came pale as a widow's blood. That clock only ticks when the wrong grave's drawn, when a shovel bites a secret best left gone. In this town of dust and railroads and crows, the dead don't sleep where the Black River flows. She held that clock like a cold 6 gun and prayed for mercy that never come. Tick, 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 like judgment's tongue for the wrong grave dug and the bell not rung. Down on Miller's acreage, where the blackbirds won't land, there's a tobacco barn leaning like a preacher gone damn. I was hauling rye whiskey by the old railroad line when the moon turned copper red and the night forgot time. No breeze in the cotton, no hymn in the pines, but smoke slipped through the rafters in slow crooked lines. Then I saw them faces gathering pale as lye and lime. Men they strung from the oak there back in 29. That barn breathes the dead on windless night, spits their sorrow in the lantern light. Rope burned shadows swinging in the heat, calling my name from the red clay deep. I drank for the silence, but the silence lied. Now the hangman rides that smoke outside. My granddaddy held the ladder, that's what mama swore, with a Bible in one hand and revolver at his core. I carried that blood like a chain in my chest, till them ghosts made faces said, boy, you ain't confessed. So I walked to the oak with a flask and a spade, dug where the roots held secrets that the law never said. Found 6 rusted buttons and a yellow length of cord, and I wept like a sinner hearing judgment from the Lord. At dawn I lit the barn with a match in trembling hand, watched them faces rise heavenward above the cursed land. That barn breathed the dead on windless night, spat their sorrow in the lantern light. Now the ashes drift where the wicked died, but their eyes still glow in the smoke inside. I prayed for redemption, but the morning sighed, and the hangman rode that smoke goodbye.